Celebrating milestones like reaching 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, it's really just a bit gauche, you know? Patting myself on the back for a job well done. Psh, please. A Q&A? That's just an excuse for arrogant people to talk about themselves. Do I have a better idea? How has YouTube been for you thus far? Well, I wish I'd started earlier, like maybe a year or two beforehand. It's a pretty lonely job, but it fits my current lifestyle pretty well. My other attempts at employment aren't really compatible with working from home, so in the middle of overlapping health and climate crises, it can be nice to stay away from the public. YouTube itself can be a bit of an emotional roller coaster, and often not the good kind, but it kind of balances out. Has the hobby turned into a whole workload, or has it remained a hobby? Yeah, it's kind of a job now. This year in particular, I've spent about 50% of my waking time watching YouTube, 40% working on YouTube, and 10% thinking about working on YouTube. Photography and computers are my two main passions, and I found it's usually healthiest that when one of them is a job, then the other should be a hobby. And right now, they're both kind of jobs. What's the best part of being on YouTube? No boss, except myself and the audience. No schedule, except the one I make for myself. Knowing that I've made a thing that other people enjoy. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Country of origin? That would be England. It's a small country in the North Sea, just east of Wales. Really big ego. Do you keep or sell your old cards? I usually sell them once I finish the review, but I've been a bit focused on work lately and haven't got round to selling a lot of them. I'm actually sitting on some cards I should have sold a while ago because they're just depreciating and gathering dust. Before anyone asks, I'm afraid I can't really afford to give them away. Rent and electricity bills have both gone up for me lately, so money's getting pretty tight. What job you work in? Something PC related? At the moment, I'm a freelance photographer, but in the past I've mainly worked in electrical retail. I may actually have to go and find another retail job soon because the freelance thing isn't working out and YouTube's taking too long. Do you find yourself having more fun building and tinkering with computers than actually using them? I admit it's actually not my favourite part. I like the planning stage, choosing parts that go together well, and then I like using them. Building and tinkering is more of an unfortunate middle step we all have to go through. Don't get me wrong, I still prefer to build my own PC than let someone else do it. I just sometimes dread having to go through it all over again, especially cable management. Why did you start the channel? Are you happy with the way it's developing, 3,000 subs, and what are your goals? I started YouTube in 2019. I'd spent about 18 years working in retail by that point and had spent about 17 and a half of those years telling myself I should get a job that I'd find creatively satisfying. I remember drafting my first scripts for a photography channel on my lunch break in about 2014, 2015, without really ever intending to go much further than that. In 2019, it was a bad year. I had a few personal problems, the kind that change your perspective on life, so I decided it was time to try and make new things happen. Am I happy with how the channel's going? Well, this is a weird topic and kind of blends into your question about goals too. I like the idea of helping people and making things people enjoy. If I take a photograph I know a small number of people are going to really love or appreciate that photo. If I give someone some buying advice in a store, I know those people are really going to appreciate that advice. Before this, the most influence I ever had at any one time was when I gave photography tutorials to rooms of about 10 people. When a YouTube video of mine reaches thousands of people, it blows your mind at first, but then I work out how much money each view's worth and realise that to make this earn as much as a job with a tiny audience, I'd need about 1 million, 1.5 million views every single month. My ego doesn't need the channel to be any bigger than it is, but to justify spending this much time and effort on the channel, I need it to grow a lot. How much time do you spend to make videos? Scripting, editing, buying, etc. Rough estimates enough. Benchmarking can take a day, maybe a day and a half, depending on how many tests I have to do. Scripting starts before I've even bought the components sometimes, but usually I finish it up over about an hour or two after I finish benchmarking. Recording and editing takes about another day. I'm getting pretty fast at filming B-roll, and I tend to do those in batches to save time. All in all, probably 2 to 3 days for a standard review. What is your budget for the hobby YouTube? I started the channel with a £2,000 budget, and that was mostly taken up with buying stuff to review. I did have to spend a couple of hundred on lights, a stabiliser, microphone, audio interface, all those sorts of things, but I already had the camera and the black and white backgrounds. The budget's ballooned a bit in the last year. Like I said in a previous answer, I sell hardware once I've finished with it, but selling takes time, and sometimes it's quicker just to borrow money from myself and pay it back once I've sold it. Is it now work or enjoyment when you make these videos? It's a little of both. I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it, but the pressure to churn out content on a regular basis prevents it from being purely a labour of love. Chicken sandwich or cheeseburger, if you had to choose one?
Cheeseburger.
What other tech tubers or YouTube creators do you follow and watch? And what non-tech YouTubers do you watch? I could literally make a whole video in which I talk about my favourite creators on YouTube, but I guess this is going to probably run on pretty long, and I don't want to make like an hour-long video. I watch, seriously, a lot of stuff. I get my movie reviews from Jeremy Jarnes and Chris Stuckman, my in-depth movie critiques and analyses from Film Joy, Maggie Mayfish, Accented Cinema, Lindsay Ellis, Just Right, Nerdwriter, Jenny Nicholson, and probably some others as well. For gaming content, I watch Outside Xbox and Outside Extra, Ahoy, White Light, Racervic, Scat the Waz, Triple Jump, No Clip, Jacob Geller, Low Spec Gamer, Iron Pineapple. I don't watch streamers anymore, but I used to watch a bit of Shroud back in his PUBG days. I don't watch as much photography as I used to, but I used to watch Tony and Chelsea Northrup, Kai Wong, Lindsay Adler, Matthew Stern, Matt Granger, Pete McKinnon, Matty Hapoja, and probably a ton of others I've forgotten about. For social commentary, video essays, and other bleeding heart lefty stuff, I like Some More News, Sean, Renegade Cut, ContraPoints, Philosophy Tube, Tom Nicholas, Adam Something, H Bomber Guy, FD Signifier, Folding Ideas, Mia Mulder. These days I think I'm above dunking on flat earthers and religious nutbags, and yet I also still watch Simon Dan, Emma Thorne, Genetically Modified Skeptic, and Friendly Atheist from time to time. For a while, a couple of years back, I got interested in starting online businesses and followed a few channels through that until I started to realise most of it was a scam. I still subscribe to Graham Stephan, but ended up unsubscribing from the rest, and instead these days I'm fascinated by some of the channels that work on exposing the scammers. People like CoffeeZilla, Mooncat, and Mike Winnett. Finally, there's the stuff that doesn't really fit with the rest, but are probably still worth mentioning, like Ask a Mortician, Benny Productions, Pix Imperfect, Alternate History Hub, Let Me Know, Natalie Gold, Anthony Vincent, CGP Grey, Vlog Brothers, and all of Hank's various side projects like Crash Course and SciShow, Internet Historian, Legal Eagle, Kyle Hill, Mini Minuteman, and Veritasium. Oh, and of course, YouTube advice channels like Channel Makers and vidIQ. As to Marcus's question, I subscribe to just about everyone you'd expect, but these days I only actually watch about half of them. David's stuff is usually must-watch for me, and I'll watch a fair amount of Crisp's videos, mainly to see if his results are similar to mine. I'm afraid I'm always second-guessing myself. I watch a few other small channels like Andy's Tech and Nexus Tech, and I see big things in the future for Tech Dweeb. Right now he's on about 4k subs, but I think he's really going to take off soon. I have a playlist on my channel page of up-and-coming PC tech creators you should all go and have a look at, by the way. Aside from that, of the big channels, I mostly watch Paul's Hardware and Tech Linked for news, ETA Prime and Taki Udon for handhelds and mini PCs, Dave 2D for laptops, Sarah Dietschy and Max Yuriev for creative tech, Luke Miani and Snazzy Labs for Mac, MKB and Optimum Tech just for the aesthetics, and Techmoan and LGR for vintage stuff. Are you inspired by zWORMz gaming? Yeah, very much so. It's inspiring to see someone doing the same things I'm doing and being popular for it. And Crisp is one of the guys I credit most with inspiring me to make a go of it, along with Random Gaming in HD and Budget Builds Official. The actual stuff I make is inspired more by non-tech creators than anything, but one day, perhaps one day soon, you're going to hear me start a video with, "Hello guys, Iceberg here, and welcome back to another video." In this one, my friends, is GTX 1660 Ti good enough for $269, or should I spend some more for RTX 2060, $388, 1080 high? Those prices seem pretty high, to be honest. The 1660 Ti is one I haven't tested, but I think I'd probably rather have a GTX 1070. As for the 2060, it's a fine card, but I don't think it's worth nearly $400. Unless the 2060 is cheaper, I'd look into the RX 6600 and 6600 XT instead. They can't ray trace worth a damn, but aside from that, they're probably overall better value. What's your personal favourite GPU? Hard to say. I don't think I actually like GPUs. I like the results they give, I like the value they represent, and I like the aesthetics of the cards. My RTX 3070 that I've got now is the best card I've ever owned, and probably all I need right now for 1440 at mostly max settings, but I still wish I'd been able to get a 3080. For value, the RX 480 and GTX 1070 are my favourites to recommend right now, and aesthetically I'm still a sucker for Sapphire Nitro Plus cards from the Polaris generation, as well as RTX 30 series Founders Editions, specifically the 3060 Ti and 3070. What is the worst GPU you've ever tested? For gaming performance, the GT 705 and Quadro P400 are about as close as graphics cards get to sickle cell anemia, but they're not technically gaming cards, so it's not completely fair to rip them to shreds for something they're not designed for. I think the RX 6500 XT is probably the worst. Not only did it disappoint me in ways I didn't think was possible for a modern GPU to disappoint me, specifically the memory bandwidth in games like Control and Halo Infinite, it also represents something of a slap in the face for consumers. Are you secretly also the YouTuber Genie Collects? You guys have a similar accent, and I think a similar sense of humour. No, I'm secretly 4Clicks Philip. But the real question for the video, do you have any other hobbies outside of PCs? I think I remember you once mentioning you used to sell cameras. Are you into photography or any other hobbies? Yes, I've been a camera enthusiast since the late 90s. I would make the distinction between photography enthusiast and camera enthusiast as being like being into PCs and being into PC gaming. I've also been into digital art since the mid-90s, but I've kind of let that slip as well in the last few years. One day, when I start getting spare time again, I'd like to do more travel and conceptual art photography, and maybe teach myself Blender. Which video was the most fun to make? Oh, I play games and edit videos all day. They're all fun to make. I think I most enjoyed making the video essay about the YouTube fad of console killer videos. I actually enjoy watching it back from time to time, though I always cringe a bit at my overly dramatic delivery, particularly in the intro. The best part was that it wasn't data heavy. I think the most boring thing about making my videos is gathering numbers, translating those numbers from a text doc to a spreadsheet, from a spreadsheet to a text layer in a video editor, then trying to make a bar chart that doesn't look like crap, and trying to say the numbers out loud without sounding like a machine. While making the video essay, I could just focus on the story and the editing. I just wish more people had watched it. How much of the contents of the channel is from hardwares you need anyway, and how much are from impulse buying while surfing eBay? It's almost all impulse buys. Actually, that's not completely true. I put thought into most of the videos I make, but the driving force is usually I need to buy something to make a video about, followed by a couple of hours of scouring the internet. The 5 most viewed videos on my channel right now are the R9 290X, R9 380, Quadro K2200, Ryzen 3400G, and 8GB RX 480. I picked up the 290X and 480 to flip them, and I thought I'd just make videos before I listed them on eBay. The 380 I thought would be interesting to talk about because GCN3 was quite short-lived and kind of gets overlooked these days. The K2200 was the result of my searching around on Tech PowerUp for interesting cards that people might not have heard of, and the 3400G I bought mostly because I'd grown frustrated trying to find GPU bargains, and I think that comes across in the thumbnail.
Are you a robot sent back from the future to save mankind from a world where Dell has taken over and forced the human race to only run single-channel RAM? Haha, why would you think that?
We know the games you use for testing, but what games do you play on your own time, and is your rig good enough to max those games? If you'd asked me a month ago, basically all I was playing was this indie game called Hades, and my Ryzen 5 5600X and RTX 3070 were overkill to say the least. Lately I've been playing some slightly more demanding stuff. I'm trying to get back into Fortnite and Call of Duty, as you can probably tell from my choice of footage for this video, but I think Fortnite is putting me in tougher lobbies these days, and I'm getting humbled on a regular basis. I play them both 1440 high to ultra settings with quality DLSS and get about 120 to 160 FPS in Vanguard and 180 to 200 in Fortnite. I also still play a fair amount of Forza Horizon 5, which runs at about 80 to 100 FPS at 1440 ultra. I enjoy playing big open world adventures, but they take up too much time. A few years back I played AC Odyssey pretty obsessively, and when I finished I intended to play AC Origins, and then I intended to play RDR2, and then Horizon Zero Dawn, and AC Valhalla, God of War, Death Stranding, and so on. The last games I actually finished were Jedi Fallen Order and Cyberpunk. Fallen Order's not too demanding. I could play that maxed out on the Razer Blade with the RTX 2060 and i7-10750H. I didn't benchmark it, but it felt fine. I played through Cyberpunk on my desktop and it was running about 50 to 60 FPS at 1440 using high RT and balanced DLSS. That was back before the 1.5 patch, so it might be outdated information by now. Finally, the question nobody asked, but I'll answer anyway. What's next for Iceberg? Well, I have a few more GPU videos lined up across the rest of August and September, possibly going into October. I also have a vintage PC I want to look at, but it involves cleaning, so I keep putting it off. Hopefully in the next few weeks I'm going to be starting CPU reviews, including an early 6-core model that I'm very excited to try out. I also have a loose idea for a series about 4K gaming, which I want to work on this year because, believe it or not, it's actually the 10th anniversary of the 4K Ultra HD standard. And I think it'll be interesting to look at it from a PC gaming standpoint, because you'd think after a decade it'll be more commonplace by now. Anyway, whether that's going to be a retrospective, a video essay, a retro review, all of the above, I haven't quite decided yet, but you can expect to see something in the next few weeks. In the meantime, thanks for the questions, hope the answers didn't disappoint, kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.